So just explain then your concerns about what happened in those 2 years you were there.
So when I arrived, what I found was kind of in the system, I mean, there was no formal booking system, so to speak, but in the system there were quite a surprising number of baptisms which were kind of going forward in terms of the baptism system that was there. And it was a large number of young male asylum seekers, almost in a cohort. And so obviously when baptisms are already in the system and you arrive as a new incumbent, you honour those baptisms because it's not an honourable thing to do suddenly to cancel things. But then I started sort of looking into it a bit further, and after those baptisms, week in, week out, significant groups of mainly Iranian and Syrian young male asylum seekers were being brought to me in sizable cohorts.
What numbers? How big?
At a time, sort of, 6 or 7 people brought to me by people saying that these need baptism, these people need baptism, and you start to spot.
Madam Chair, sorry, when you say they were brought to you,
yes.
who was doing the bringing?
Well, there was a particular individual who I think had received right to remain in the UK through the asylum application system, but I think this particular individual didn't want baptism, but was bringing lots of other people who this individual said these need to be baptised.
So this person was potentially an asylum seeker themselves beforehand?
Yes, well, I think that person had sought asylum and had received right to remain in the UK, but they themselves weren't requesting baptism. They were bringing groups who were said to be wanting baptism.
Sorry, Marco, can I just conclude?
Yeah.
I just want to be clear, you said 6 or 7 people.
At a
time. So how often was this happening? Every week, 6 or 7?
It would be sort of, every 2-3 weeks you'd get sort of that number of people being...
The same people being brought back or different people?
Well, different people.
Right, so over a 2-year period, you're saying 6 or 7 people were being brought every week?
In batches. Every 2 or 3 weeks there would be a batch of 6 people, that sort of number, brought to me, yeah.
Right, and did you, from looking at the information we've had available to the committee, the number of baptisms that took place in your church during the period you were there, were I think 15 that could be put to or could be referred to as asylum seekers.
Yeah, well,
so this doesn't quite tally if you're saying 6 or 7 every couple of weeks. But the baptisms are only 15 over that 2-year period.
And that's because I pressed a pause button on the process. So there is a discrepancy. Well, it's not a discrepancy. It's a difference between the number of people that were being brought to me to request baptism and the actual number of baptisms that happened. And so, as I said, both in the interview I gave with the Telegraph and just a moment ago, I honoured the baptisms that were the baptism requests that were already in the system. But then you spot a pattern, and then you think, hang on, there's something going on here, and then you try to press a pause button, which is to make sure that people are requested to come to church and start getting involved and attending church regularly, events and so on, and that was the thing that kind of made the numbers fall off a cliff in a sense, because those people kind of melted away. Really, they weren't really wanting to get involved with the life of the church so much after I sort of requested them to do so.
I'm going to move to Tim Loughton.
Thank you, Chair. Reverend Firth, since your interview and your comments, it's probably fair to say that the Church of England has come down on you like the Spanish Inquisition.
Yeah.
And the quote from the Bishop of Durham, who was the official spokesperson in response to your interview, he said, "We robustly reject all the allegations being made by Matthew Firth, who resigned from his role at St Cuthbert's in 2020, for which he's provided no evidence. At no time did he raise concerns locally or with senior clergy about the number of asylum seekers being baptised at the church, and produces no evidence being bullied by local church members in relation to this matter." Why have they come down on you in such quite a heavy way, do you think?
It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, no allegations have been made by myself about either the bishop, the diocese, the church or anything. I was simply describing what I saw. If the eyewitness testimony of a priest isn't evidence, then in a sense I don't know what sort of evidence they're wanting. it is quite interesting that rather than just calmly and sort of and in a business-like way dealing with the eyewitness testimony that I put forward and the experience that I recounted, instead of doing that, there were a number of sort of veiled attacks in the press, writing it off as nonsense. In a letter to the Telegraph, I think the former Bishop of Durham said that Mr. Firth has presented an imaginative range of allegations. Well, they're not imaginary. You know, it's what I saw and I had to deal with at the time.